Okay, today we're going to be looking at uh, who am I? Who am I? Who are you when you're actually running a container? So we're going to look at examining how a container, the user that a container actually runs as. How do you determine what that user is? We're going to look at that today. Um, so to get started, I'm going to log into a Red Hat virtual machine that I already have set up on my system. I'm going to use vbox manage, which is VirtualBox's command line. Vbox manage list VMs, and I've got two VMs, a Windows and a Red Hat VM. And I'm going to look at the state of this Red Hat VM. Vbox manage show VM info. Show VM info. These commands aren't very intuitive in my opinion. And I'm going to grep for state. So I see that it's powered off. Okay, so we're going to start it up. So vbox manage start VM, put in the ID, and we're also going to pass it an option of type. We're going to say headless. So we're going to start up this virtual machine in a headless state. So it's starting up now. And let's SSH into it. I have an alias set up for the word rel, alias rel. You can see that when I type rel, it's just going to do SSH into rel. And what is rel here? What am I SSHing into? Well, that is inside the .sh config file. You can see that I have rel. I have it pointed back to localhost as the host name. User student, port 2215. Forward agent, yes. So I'm going to type rel. And now I'm logged into my rel server. See my command prompt changed. I already have podman on this server, so I'm going to do podman ps, see which containers are running. I've got two podman images will show me what images I have. So I've got a bunch of images running. Let's just pick an image. Let's pick this bitnami nginx image just to see what it's running as. So the easiest way that you can tell what your container image is going to run in is just to look inside the image itself. So you could do a podman image inspect. So you do podman image inspect, give it the name of the image, and then we want to grep for the word user. And we get a bunch of stuff back. But we actually see here there's a capital U user, so maybe we should have, instead of passing the -i to grep, to the grep command, we do capital U. So, okay, so we see that that the nginx container is going to run, the nginx image, when you run it as a container, it's going to run as user 1001. Let me show you another real quick way to get that same information without having to use grep in this way. You can pipe this into the JQ command. JQ command is a command that basically parses JSON, gives you JSON output. So let's see. So here we go, user 101, and 1001. And I'll show you another quick way to get that same information. Just showing you some quick ways to kind of get at the same information. You could do -- format, and then you could type user. And this gives you the information as a text string without the quotes. So there's three different ways you can get this information. So this is how you can tell what user the container is going to be running as. So let's actually see it in process. Let's say podman run. We're actually going to run the container. We're going to call it nginx. And let's put in docker.io bitnami nginx. Okay, so what this is saying is podman, let's run this container. The last argument is the actual name of the container image. Let's run it in detach mode. That's what -d is for. and dash dash name is we're giving our container a name. So when we do podman ps, we will actually see this name, Nginx. Okay. And when we run this, mind you, it's going to run whatever the entry point is. Okay, whatever the default entry point is inside the container, that's what's going to get run, which is probably a script that's pointing to Nginx. So it should run it, and it's going to run it in the foreground, so it will, keep it running. So let's take a look at this. So podman run -d dash name Nginx, and we're going to run it. So we run it, and we do podman ps, and we see the Nginx container right here that it is running. Now, let's actually see whoami inside the container. Is the container really running as this user, 1001? So we do podman exec on the Nginx container. Exec is just a way that you can execute a command within the running container image. So we say podman exec, and we say who am I? And 1001. All right. So let's take this a step further. Let's run let's see who am I on the host system. I'm user student on the host system. But in this container, you see I'm user 1001. If you want to be a user, if you want the container to run as a certain user, you need to tell it. You need to tell it that information. For example, if I pull up podman exec again on Nginx, and I do, let's say, cat etc password. Let's see what users are configured on this container system. You have root, you have all these users, right? Let's say I wanted this container to run as www data user, okay? That's one of the users that's configured inside the container already, okay? Because I know that because I just catted out the etc password file inside the container system's file system, not my etc pass. See, if I cat out my etc password out here on the host system, you get some different, let me clear this up. Let's grep for www. It's not there, but inside the container, grep www, you see it's there, okay? So let's say I want my container image to run as www, because right now it's not, When I say who am I, you see that it's not running as www. So what you want to do is, I'm going to run this container again. So I'm going to say podman run -d. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call the name of the container www Nginx. Nginx, okay? But now I'm going to say --user www data, okay? Because I want to run it as that. I want to run the container as that user. Then I'm actually going to give it the container name, docker.io bitnami Nginx, okay? So we run it again, say podman ps. Okay, I don't see it, so it looks like it stopped and it canceled out. It didn't run. So let's see what happened to it. So it exited with exit 1. Whenever you exit with a non-zero status, like exit 1, that means there was an issue. If you want to find out what that issue is, you can do podman logs www Nginx. So podman logs is going to display the logs of that container and hopefully tell us why it died. So we look down here and it says user directive makes sense only if the master process runs with super user privileges. Ignored in opt bitnami Nginx conf nginx.conf. So only if the master process runs with super user privileges. I'm assuming it means the master process outside of the container. Let's see. The user directive makes sense only if the master process runs with super user privileges. Ignored and opt. Nope, it's actually talking about, I think, inside the container. So let's try this again. Let's do it this way. Let's podman rm www data. Oops. Oh, I said www data, and I meant to say www nginx. Okay, so podman run. Let's call it same thing again. www nginx. Maybe it wanted this. Docker.io bitnami. Kind of learning myself right now as we go along. Bitnami nginx. Let's see what it does. Podman. Okay, so I guess it was telling us, hey, it only makes sense if you run it as root. You cannot run it as another user. So let's see. Podman exec www nginx and who am I? Oops. Can only create exec session on running containers. Thought it was running. Nope. So it died. And let's see why it died. Podman logs www nginx. And it says changing permission denied. Okay. Let's try this another way just to understand how this is actually working. Because we couldn't run it as root, we couldn't run it as another user that we know exists. So let's try something else. Let's say, actually, let's do this. I just want to make sure of what it was trying to tell me. www nginx. And let's do sudo here. So now we're running this container as root. We're using root to start this container outside of the unable to find oops, I said www nginx. I meant to say www data. And I think we need to change the name because it's telling me I already have a name. Sudo podman ps-a. So we do podman rm www nginx. Let's get rid of this container. Let's run it again. Sudo podman ps. Let's see if it's running. Nope, not running. Okay. So that's very, very interesting. And we know there is a data user. There is a www data user inside there. So let's try it another way. Let's create a container file. Let's make a directory called whoami. Cd into whoami. And let's make a container file. Container file. And let's say from docker.io bitnami www.nginx. That means we're gonna make a new container image from this container image. And we're gonna say user www data, because we know that user exists. Whenever you use the user command, you're basically saying what user you want the container to end up running as. So we're going to say podman build, and then we're going to give it a name. We're going to call this www data, and so we're creating manifest requested access to resource denied. Bitnami www. Oh, I think I know what happened inside this container file. I put www nginx. That was wrong. Should have just been nginx. I might have made that mistake before, but let me. Okay, the reason I'm getting this message right here, shell is not supported for OCI image format. Whenever you get that message, you need to specify -- format equals Docker. And then you won't get that message. So podman, images. Okay. Here's the www data image. Let's clean up our images a little bit. Podman RMI, and let's get rid of this right here. Okay. Show you guys another little quick trick. If you do podman images and you do -- not format, but there's a way you can filter. You say filter, and you could say reference equals data. Oops. Sorry. Podman images filter -- data. If I can type correctly. Okay. Www. How about www data? There we go. All right. So so now if we want to see what this is going to run as, we say podman. What was the command again? Podman inspect -- format, and then we say user and www data. So it's going to run as www data. Let's actually see if it's. So we do podman ps. So let's get rid of podman. Let's do podman rm www nginx. Let's get rid of this. We're deleting this down here, this particular image, or container rather. Okay. Now we're going to say podman run -d -name www nginx, and the image name was www data. And so this should. So the reason that it's probably dying is because it's dying because basically inside the container, inside the bitnami container, it's configured to run as 1001. It's not configured, so whenever I try to run the container as that other user is not able to start up nginx, and that's pretty much what it amounts to. Because if we look at the error message, podman logs www. If we look at the error message, we're going to see that it tells me, it says ignored in opt nginx conf nginx.conf. So if we actually go to this directory, I mean, if we actually open this file up inside the container, so let me show you something. Let's use this as an example. Let's actually exec inside this container. Podman exec nginx bash. Oops, that was wrong. I wanted to, oh, I forgot to put the IT. All right, -IT, basically -I is saying create an interactive, -T is create a terminal and -I is make it interactive. So now that we're inside of it, let's actually open up this file. The VI command is not there. Well, can we cat out the file? And somewhere in this file, it's probably, see, it says default nobody. So that's the user that it's got to run as. So grep -i-user. So it's going to run as the user nobody. If I say who am I bet that I'm nobody, which is 1001. So if we grep for 1001 and etc password, well, I thought that would mean I'm the user nobody. Maybe not. Nobody. Nope, there is a nobody user. So the web server does run as nobody. Does no, it runs as user www. I think that's what that's telling me inside there. But you have to be the user 1001 to get her done, essentially. Let me see. Well, I don't have a great answer other than to say that you can't run this type of container as another user, but like a system container, for example, a container that is just like UB9 or something like that, universal base image. So let's take this container, for example. We could definitely run this one as another user. Should be able to. Podman inspect. So this one runs as root. Okay, so now I understand a little bit more about what that message was telling us. It's saying, hey, if you're running a container that's already running as root, you can probably do what you're trying to do. You can change the user. Podman run -d -name, and we'll call this root ub. Okay, so run this, and when we run it, let's just say sleep 600. We want the container to continue running in the background, so we can exec into it. Podman ps. So podman exec. Well, we just say podman exec root ub, and we'll say who am I? It should say root. That's my assumption. Yep, it's root. Now let's run that same container again as another user. And actually, before we do that, let's cat out. Let's look for some users in there. Cat etc password. Let's run it as user operator. Yeah, let's do that. Let's see. Let's see if we can run it as the user operator. So we're going to say -- user operator. And we'll call this container name operator ub. Operator. Okay. Podman ps. We see operator ub. Podman exec operator ub. And when we say who am I, it should say operator. It says operator. So system containers, you can pretty much you can change the user that it's running as, but a container that needs to run as a specific, only specific users probably have permissions to run, you know, certain things for service type containers, not a system container. Anyway, I hope it was useful. Hope you got some useful commands just out of playing around and seeing what user your container runs as. Peace.